From the center of the galaxy, this is ForceCenter, a podcast about Star Wars, pop culture, and the ultimate adventure, life itself. I'm Joseph Scrimshaw.
And I'm Ken Napzok.
And I'm Jennifer Landa.
And we are here for an ironically titled episode. This is our breaking news from a long time ago. And when we first came up with that, kind of meant it is a little joke. But it's very true this week because we're going to be talking about the video game trailer Outlaws, which came out 7 months ago. Not quite that long. I'm exaggerating. But we wanted to get around to talking about it from, I think, an interesting perspective of people who don't play video games as much anymore. So excited to look at it from that perspective, and some great Acolyte news and a look ahead to May the 4th as well. We also want to let you know that it's always, today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This week we are recommending The Living Force by John Jackson Miller as we head into the celebration of the 25th anniversary of The Phantom Menace. This is a great Phantom Menace related book. You can download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. One more time, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for a free audio book. I need to stop talking now for a little while. So, Ken, do you want to tell people about our asks?
Absolutely do. Take a breath. You've done a great job, as we always know you do here. All right. Hey, we have a Patreon goal. We have Patreon goals reached. We have things going on over on Patreon at patreon.com/ForceCenter. We'd love for you to check it out. We recently reached our goal of 400 plus paid patrons. They have a new public membership. They have a paid membership. I'm still slightly confused, but we appreciate those who are paid supporters because you helped reach our goal of a movie commentary. We're going to dive back into movie commentaries. So we put up a poll. It's up there on the Patreon page until May 6th, so about a week from now. You can help us decide. Now, we'll say this. The current leader in the clubhouse is Rise of Skywalker, and it's not even close beyond that. I think, Joseph, you've noted the Revenge of the Sith at 13% is number 2. So it looks like we're racing towards episode 9. But, you can start a grassroots campaign if you want us to do something else. It's there. But we're going to have a lot of fun with this one, and you're going to help us decide. And we appreciate all your support making these dreams come true over at patreon.com/ForceCenter. There you go. And ask.
Yeah. And that commentary is up through May 6th. So get in there while you can. Let's talk life or Star Wars adventures. Jennifer, did you have some life and or Star Wars adventures this week?
I did. I'm not going to talk about Disneyland because I talked about it before, but we did go to the Star Wars weekend at the Angels Stadium. I don't know if there's like a different name for it, but we went to go see an Angels game, and my husband's like, it's also Star Wars weekend. I said, sold. Let's go. And I didn't know what to expect. We got there kind of late, so we missed out. They were passing out rally monkeys that were dressed as the Mandalorian. They were playing the Mandalorian music. They played the Bad Batch theme song, the Clone Wars theme song, which was kind of, I was like,
wow,
is this too deep cut for this audience, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of random. And then there was a fun detail where, and Ken, correct me, is it the stats board where they have all the players, like the pictures and their stats? What is that called?
The Diamond Vision, they change from each stadium. Dodger Vision, Angel Vision, the big board.
Yeah, the big board where they have to flip the players. Yeah, scoreboard. Yeah. And so they Photoshop each player into a Star Wars character's outfit. So like all the good, our team was like, Han Solo, Mace Windu, fun characters like that. And then the other team was like, a TIE pilot or a lot of stormtroopers. And then it ended with a fireworks show set to Star Wars music, which was just epic. So it was fun.
Amazing. Where is this stadium?
Anaheim.
Okay.
They're called the Los Angeles Angels, I think, which is just absurd because there's nowhere near Los Angeles.
Yeah, they used when they started, they were the Los Angeles Angels because they played closer to Los Angeles. But
there you go.
It's always been a weird thing.
Yeah. My mother was telling me about a commercial she's been seeing for visiting Los Angeles, and it's like the Hollywood sign, then Venice Beach, then Rodeo Drive, and I was like, that's just an ad for driving. That's just an ad for being stuck in traffic. Those things are not close together.
That's right.
Yeah. 3 worlds apart.
Yeah. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Ken, what were your life or Star Wars adventures this week?
Nothing too spectacular. I'm kind of gearing up for the May 4th, which is fun that we're going to be previewing today. What's going on then? But I know I did perform on they have the it's like a sci-fi fantasy nerd themed show at Flappers. They do about once a month in Burbank, and it's always amazing to go there and realize it's not that. Like there's no one. I come dressed in Star Wars gear, and nothing. No one else is there. In fact, there's a lot of people still making fun of the stuff. So it's weird to kind of get outside that bubble often. And it's not just the comics; it's the crowd. They're all some like, "What are we? We didn't sign up for Star Wars jokes." But it's fun to. There's some of the comics too. So it's fun to just chat and generational differences, or not even generational differences, but the our generation and their view of the Phantom Menace. I said, hey, to the host, my credit is, author of Why We Love Star Wars. And another comic's like, you wrote a Star Wars book. He's like, does it have Jar Jar in it? I'm like, yeah, actually it does. It does. Yeah, I like Jar Jar. There's always just like, okay. There's like, it's weird to kind of step out of those lanes and just be like, yeah, all those old jokes are still at work. And I like fighting back against that. And I'm glad we're on this side of the conversation.
There's the actual empathy for maybe people who like something different, and then there's also like, if you're gonna do a Jar Jar joke, let's follow up with like 20 minutes on airplane food. It's just also like we as a society we've covered this. we're good on it.
Right.
Yeah, and how it's just, and I get it. Maybe there's other things that I'm not aware of that I've stopped, but like we got to the point where we were like, we all agreed that we hated these movies and we make fun of them just full bore, right? We don't stop, and it's like nah, we don't do that. We don't do that, and it's just it's fun to track that, but also painful at times. But it was good. Yeah. I represented. Wore Brian Ward Max Rebo shirt. What do you want from me? I did it. I did it, Burbank.
I did a couple of when I was doing more stand-up shows like that at Flappers, and some of them were put on by by people who really curated and put together a fun night, and people knew what they're in for. And some of them, it does just seem like, let's it's the taco show, and like nobody's doing comedy and no tacos are being sold. It's just weird branding. What's going on? Yeah, sci-fi taco. I don't know. There's something on there. It's very funny.
It is weird, but good stuff indeed. So that was mine. You?
Yeah, I was able to take it a little bit easier. I still got some work done, some life planning done, but my wife and I haven't both had 2 days off together in a row, and we realized literally months. We were like, why does this feel so nice? Why does this feel like we're on our second honeymoon, just sitting at home? It's like, because we haven't actually had time together. So I've been slowly reading The Living Force, the new John Jackson Miller book. And yesterday I just rebelled. I had a moment where I finished doing kind of some of the setup work for this episode. And then I was like, and I should start working on all these other things. And I was like, I'm going to read a book in the afternoon on a Sunday, like a real rebel, and finish The Living Force. Cause it's the only way I finish them is if I attack them in large chunks. And man, maybe this book won't be for everybody. Certainly, people making Jar Jar jokes, they probably wouldn't like this. But man, did I love it. If people aren't familiar with it, it's basically Qui-Gon challenges the Jedi Council to help one person and to get a little bit more in touch with the living force for being out there in the galaxy, actually talking to people and looking at helping people as a micro thing instead of just a macro thing of like, well, what we're talking to the Senate about, programs that's helping people, and go talk to a person. And for me, we talk a lot about justice for the Jedi. That's something that came up when we were doing the Clone Wars report a lot, Jennifer, of that. I think there's so much Star Wars storytelling that wants to criticize the Jedi and point out that they made mistakes. And there are a lot of fans who's like, yep, they're a-holes. They have no emotions and they kidnap children. They're the bad guys of Star Wars. And for me, it's always like, no, the point is they're trying to do something really, really difficult where they want to help everyone, and you can't help everyone all the time. And they want to care about everyone in the galaxy, but not get attached to individuals too much. And there's all these things that are incredibly difficult because they're walking this lofty, noble path. And the book is really about that, of like, their hearts are all in the right place. They're trying. they're going to make some mistakes and they're going to make some really bad ones. But look at all these people trying so hard. I loved it for that.
It's great. Yeah, I'm about halfway through, and I love it. It's a field trip vibe, right? I love this. Council, pack your bags. We're gonna go out in the galaxy. It's been fun to kind of dive into that.
Yeah, it's also just so faithful to the Phantom Menace while also kind of playing with some of those questions of like, hey, we all made jokes in 1999 about who the hell Yarl Poof is. Like, what's the guy with what's big floaty head doing back there? What's his deal? Like, they spend some time with him, but also like they really make it a character trait that some of them are way too emotionally reserved, and that's really fascinating. So yeah, it really, really answers some questions that people have been wondering for a long time about some Jedi, but also does not deny anything that's in the Phantom Menace. So I loved it.
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
And I will say this: I'm enjoying not taking notes, just kind of reading at my pace. So it's a welcome approach.
Yeah, I took photos of like specific quotes I wanted to remember, but not for a book report, for my soul report if I want to look it up again. So very nice. Very nice.
Good.
So yeah, there's a mini review for people who miss our book reports. But with that, let's get into some only sort of breaking news. The Star Wars Outlaw trailer. I wrote down some specific information from, hey, you know, there's a great place that still has specific information on the internet? Wikipedia. So here's a little chunk of just basic information. Star Wars Outlaws is an upcoming action-adventure game set in the Star Wars universe, developed by Massive Entertainment and published by Ubisoft under license by Lucasfilm Games. The game takes place during the period between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. It is scheduled for release for a bunch of platforms in August. It's a single-player, third-person action-adventure game, and the first Star Wars game, according to Wikipedia, to feature a fully open world. It will feature stealth and open combat, vehicle combat, space combat, and branching dialogue. I guess dialogue combat is what is meant by that. Set specifically between Empire and Jedi, and the main characters are the scoundrel Kay Vess, portrayed by Humberly Gonzalez, and her companion Nix, portrayed by D. Bradley Baker. And they are attempting a big heist in the Outer Rim, journey across several planets, familiar ones like Tatooine, Kijimi, and Akiva, and never before seen ones as well. So that's kind of the big overview of what the game actually is. And I wanted to share those details because, hey, I kept forgetting them. So here's my question for you, Ken. All three of us have a history of gamers. I think we've had some long nights and long afternoons and damaged thumbs over the years. So we are gamers. But with the possible exception of you, Ken, we're not voracious gamers right now. So what's your response to a game like this, Ken? Are you planning on playing it? Are you happy for others that it exists? Are you kind of looking at it and wishing it came out at a different time in your life when you were just pining for an open world Star Wars game? What's your emotional response?
I almost, oddly, it sounds like a cheat, all of them. I wish this came out in the mid-90s and I had a PS5 in the mid-90s. My life would have been... I know, it might have been worse, actually, to be honest. No, I'm very excited for this game, and I'm approaching it with an open heart. I am approaching it cautiously. I do not have a great relationship with Squadrons and the two Jedi Order games, as I've said before here. But we have ForceCenter listeners who do. And again, I always want to say it's not so much the characters, Marin and Cal and that whole team. I like them. I like a lot of the stories. I like Trilia. I thought she was a great addition to the Inquisitor kind of storylines that come out of that organization. But it was the gameplay, and it's a lot of that kind of stuff run up against. So I am approaching it cautiously, but I'm ready to dive in. I am excited that this exists. I want to test the boundaries of the definition of open world game that they claim, because the last couple games promised a little bit of that, and it didn't really scratch that itch for me. And I love those kind of games. So I'm all in. I'm all in with a little bit of a foot on the brake pedal.
Because of the gameplay aspect.
Because of the gameplay, yeah.
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 Even though this looks to be a very different style of gameplay than Jedi or Squadrons, you just feel a little burned on the actual mechanics. Didn't feel fun. They felt like work to you in those games.
It was aggravating at times for me, and I'm not the best game but not the best gamer in terms of skills, but I'm not bad. I'm always the
Mhm.
top 5 to top 2 Fortnite finisher and a winner. I can play games. I can do this. And, it's not like I'm like, what's the X button? I'm pretty good at it. And I just thought that the other games are pretty frustrating. And there's some, I want to dive into the story. I'm excited for this story. I think the Underworld is a great place. The second Fallen Jedi Survivor, it pushed my it pushed how far I accept these stories that happened. It got a little wild for me. Where I'm like,
Okay, this is
I
like
don't know.
this
I
is
don't
like some
know.
old school space whales. There aren't vampires in Star Wars kind of thing vibe for you.
No, just like it. I always do that test, and it can be grumpy, but I do that test of when the camera fades in on Return of the Jedi. Do I believe all this stuff happened between Empire and Jedi?
Right.
Okay,
And the
yeah.
comics has pushed up against that, and the second game more than the first game of Jedi Order. I was like, I don't think there's a secret planet where Jedi were trying to get to, and there's a 200-year-old High Republic Jedi being brought back to life. I don't think that happened, and that's where some of the caution comes in as well.
Okay, got it. I want to ask you one other question, then I want to get to you, Jennifer. But while we're talking about kind of general gameplay, Ken, you've been playing Fortnite a decent amount.
Too much. You can
too
say
much?
You can say too much.
I say a decent amount. You get to say too much. But it's a social exercise, right? You aren't sitting there on Fortnite finding random 15-year-olds to combat. You are playing with a specific group of people and having conversations, and it's social time.
Yeah,
this video game is kind of the opposite of like it's single player, and the appeal of open world is that you can just disappear into it, right?
Yeah.
Are you feeling a push-pull between video games as a social aspect thing and as a single alone escapism adventure?
No, there's a good dividing line that I'm happy with on that. Like, if I play my sports games, ain't nobody around, and it's me for a few hours and my sports players I created. But you're right, the Fortnite game, like I clearly have a lot of fun. But it's hanging out with friends. It's Friday nights in 1996 with Mountain Dew, Chips Ahoy, and GoldenEye and your friends. Like it's absolutely that. So, but I'm okay with that. Not being the case with Outlaws. It'd be a good Saturday morning, 2 hours, cup of coffee. All right, 3 hours. That's probably what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Balance. Jennifer, where are you at in your relationship with gaming and how it affects your reaction to something like this Outlaws video game coming out?
My family games, my kids play Roblox way too much, which is a totally different type of game. Not really game, but that's not true because I play Animal Crossing and I kind of call it more like slow gaming, right? And like my husband plays Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And it's for us as adults, it's more about like the vibe. And so it is just kind of like, I'm chopping down wood. I'm cozying up my house, or when we're in Breath of the Wild, we're solving puzzles and just kind of exploring this world. It just feels vibey. And so when I saw this gameplay, I was like, or this trailer it looked really cool. I prefer it to be a show. I really like the character. I love exploring the underworld. And I'm like, why can't they just make it a Disney Plus series? This to me is interesting because when it's in the video game world, I'm like, like you're saying, Ken, I can't, especially with the timeline, which we're going to talk about later. It's like, I don't want them to expand too much on that. And one last thing I'll say, if you look at the comments on this trailer, this game was published by Ubisoft, and apparently someone at Ubisoft made the comment to get used to not owning your games. So all the comments are like, I'm not buying this game because we're going to fight back. So anyways, I think that's going to be some drama for this game when it's released.
There's already a lot of drama. I'm glad you brought that up. I put it at the end of my notes, but I should have put it at the beginning. No, it's good. So they are selling, some advanced versions, and there's some specific Java mission that is locked behind buying this season pass, which comes with the $199 or $109.99 gold edition, and there's an even more expensive $129.99 ultimate edition. The publisher has tried to get in front of it and say, no, everybody gets to interact with Jabba. It's just this one specific Jabba mission. But people kind of can't know ahead of time until they play the game. It's, to me, that's like, it's different when the game already exists, you played through it, and they're like, do you want to give us 20 more bucks for an additional side mission? And you really understand and trust for yourself, like, yeah, I've played the game, it's a side mission. And I think what people are upset about now is like, we don't trust you that it's a side mission. We think that you're going to make us pay if we don't know ahead of time how to make this choice, that we might miss something substantive or miss interacting with Jabba in a substantive way. It's just so funny.
Yeah.
So funny. So far advanced than the video games that were around in 1983. Like $20 more to interact with Jabba, kid. They're really, really funny.
And it's just weird because it's like not like on a I don't know, like a mobile game, right? Where you kind of expect those in-app purchases. I just and maybe it's because I'm old school. It's like I buy the game and this is the game that I want to play. Don't make me like now shell out another $30 because I want to interact with Jabba, right? So but I'm not gonna buy this game. So
so you aren't gonna play this game.
No, it's cool. If it was on the Nintendo Switch, I'd buy it. Give me a vibey Star Wars game. Where's my like Animal Crossing Star Wars edition? Now that is what I want. Tiny Death Star. You guys remember that game?
Yeah,
loved that game.
No, I never played that.
Tiny Death Star.
No,
it was so fun. It was on your phone, right, Ken? It was just like you could just.
I never played. I do kind of remember it.
What did you do?
I think you kind of like built a tiny Death Star and like you have the little jobs and stuff. It was very mindless, but very fun.
Yeah.
Does anyone else remember this?
Yeah. I believe you. I believe you.
Fever dream.
Yeah. So I think I'm in agreement with both of you on some stuff. I would have adored this game 7 to 10 to 15 to 20 years ago. For me, I think the reason that I really loved Star Wars games, like. I think some of them were great games that had actually amazing design. I think some of the Rogue Squadron games were phenomenal. But like I have extremely happy memories of playing some not great Star Wars video games going back to the NES where like, the deformed, looked like Funko Pops before Funko Pops existed. Yeah. I played that NES basic Star Wars game again and again because I really valued being able to spend more time in the world of Star Wars. So I think I always pined for an open world where, you could go on missions, but you can just stop and stare at things from Star Wars, So I think I would have really, really loved and wanted this game back in the day and just loved playing the missions, but also just wandering around and spending time with stuff from the movies. Those Rogue Squadron games that were for like N64 and the GameCube. I remember sometimes I wouldn't leave the mission screen because I just wanted to look at the ships more. So the open world part of it is very, very appealing to me. And then there's a lot that I'm interested in because it's such a different. We're in a different world of storytelling and the way video games interact with the entire rest of the canon of storytelling, which sounds like both of you have some ups and downs with. And I think it's less that I am for it or against it, and I'm more just like fascinated by it. I kind of want to play this like as a, student of narrative evolution because I'm fascinated by the way these games are interacting with the rest of Star Wars storytelling and the way they're impacting audiences and the way the walls have been broken down between what story has value and what story doesn't, and what story is more or less canonical based on the media, and all of that changing so much from when we were young is fascinating to me.
Yeah, you said ups and downs, and I want to make sure I have real high ups. I love the story of Battlefront 2. I think Iden Versio still is one of my favorite characters. I think she's been forgotten. In fact, there was an article that championed the Kay Vess and this being a female-led character, female-led Star Wars game, and you should champion that. We can talk about that. But it was just someone actually like tweeted out or something. I think I saw on one post like, Iden Versio would like to talk to you, like
Yeah.
2017, like
Yeah.
cover character. So I have a lot of ups, and I think Fallen Order has a lot of things I absolutely love too, and I want to make it clear to those listening, like it's not all negative, and even my own personal litmus test of did that really happen? It doesn't mean it should be taken seriously outside of just my own brain. You know what I mean? But I even we could spin this off into a comic conversation. I've even seen people talk about this game and the story and going, well, it kind of takes the same place as the Crimson Reign, Crimson Dawn, Hidden Empire, War of the Bounty Hunter comics. There's some pretty wild stuff that happened in there. I see that a lot in reviewers and stuff. Like, it takes a place, and I just think that we get so much to, I don't know, just, I don't want to say wacky, but you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Where it's just like, I don't know. I don't know if that needed to happen and why. And you know, Han Solo melted before the Jabba's palace. I don't know. And I just kind of revert to a 15-year-old, 15 years prior fan that I was, where I just kind of tuned a lot of that out. And that's not fair to those that enjoy it. I want to be clear.
Yeah. Let's talk more about that. I'm just gonna kind of flip our questions because we're on the topic, so I want to stay here. So even if the three of us don't play it, and I should also say one of the reasons I'm not gonna play it most likely is I don't have a PlayStation 5 and I have a borderline video game problem. Longtime listeners know this, so I'll keep it short. But just like I can't. There was a time my wife made a special meal and I literally made myself sick playing Resident Evil 4, and I had to admit halfway through the meal like I have to lie down or I'm gonna throw up these enchiladas that you made me because I played Resident Evil 4 too aggressively, and I don't normally have motion sickness issues. Like I have to really watch myself, and I adored Battlefront. And that Iden Versio, and then I spent a lot of time online playing like the heroes versus villains and all that, and I had some times where like I'm skipping important things, so I have to be careful personally. So that's entirely personal thing, and I don't have a PlayStation 5. All right, so talking a little bit more about this story. So even if we don't play this game, it's going to have an impact on us as people who cover Star Wars and talk about it. Because these video games now tie into and sometimes expand existing canon. So like with the Jedi Fallen Order video game, like that story means a lot to me, and it ties into the Hidden Path, and it colored the way people received Obi-Wan Kenobi because so many, the Nur and everything that happened there was very similar to what happened to the game. There's an announcement dropped this week of 2 new action figures, and one of them is yet another Cal Kestis. Video games, unlike when we were young, they are not siloed off. They are, story-wise at this point, like the same amount of people might not experience it, but story-wise, comic books, video games, books, TV shows, movies are all sort of. It's not just canon that it all agrees. It's sort of everything. The story is driven forward by all of them. So, Ken, you don't mind that. So the sort of the walls being broken down and everything being canon. It's this specific game with its era that the diving into all of the fights between the criminals and some of the wilder things that happen in that era, and from your perspective, shoving in lots of details between Empire and Jedi that you kind of don't need or want. That's what's bothering you more than the walls breaking down?
Yeah, well, yes. Yeah, I don't mind the walls breaking down. Again, I loved, just the character of Iden Versio and Inferno Squad. It was like, okay, this is brand new, obviously, but let's see how it works in, and I enjoyed it. And there's a lot of, again, squadrons and had some stuff that I really liked and characters I liked. So it's not so much the walls, and I want to own, like I'm trying to own. I don't want this to be a super negative episode of ForceCenter, where we've had a couple of those, and it kind of hurts people's souls a little bit. And I get it. Like decade of being overly positive in a lot of ways. I have to own that I have some fears. I think this is a good way to approach it. Outlaws, scoundrels, underworld, because it's all in the shadows, so it's kind of contained. You got the Empire's kind of in the backdrop here. There's details of the rebellion's not ending. It's a pesky, annoying rebellion that's not ending. So the Empire is busy. We can go have our stories. I think I'm not expecting. You're not going to steal Han Solo's carbonite, all that stuff. But I just want to own that I have a little bit of a lot clearly of baggage of that kind of stuff where. I don't want it to be non-canon, but I just don't want to be so negative. Where I'm just I'm trying to be honest. I just think some of the choices they've made in the last couple of years are a little too far for me.
To me, there's a difference between disliking something honestly, because we're all different, and how we talk about it and how we express it. And I think for me, I agree with you. I don't know how it got into my soul that I don't want storytelling between Empire and Jedi. I think what it is that people our age and younger as well, but certainly people our age have had a long time to just imagine what happens between. And it feels like I'm been sitting in my mind playing with action figures for 40 years, and then somebody else comes in and goes, "No, here's what happens." I think it's a specific bias that I have. I ended up reading the War of the Bounty Hunters because of it, and Crimson Reign and Crimson Empire and Crimson Birthday Party. I don't even remember what all the titles were, but I read them all. I read them because I cared about the character of Kira.
Same, yeah.
And what happened with me, Ken, was I recognized that I have this knee-jerk reaction of, I don't need Luke to have a yellow lightsaber in between. I don't need Han Solo to have melted. I had that grumpy reaction. And it's like, but I love all the new storytelling with Kira. And there's a specific thing in the last one that ties to the sequels that I super love. So I just adopted a just eat around what you don't like attitude to it. And I think if I played this video game, I'd have the similar thing of like, I don't need 8 million more twists and turns with what happened to Han Solo's carbonite slab. But I'll just eat around that, and I'll enjoy this new story of this new character of K-Vess and get invested in that. That's how I react to it.
Yeah, and I think that's the way to approach it. And it's the way I'm going to be looking at it. I really like what I've seen so far of K-Vess, and I'm really excited for that character. I absolutely think you're right. And it's not just original trilogy angst or grumpiness. There's just something. I know what you mean, where it's just like, I'm like, why couldn't? I don't know. So even once you start saying why couldn't, then you kind of get almost into what if angry car guy. But it's like, why couldn't Han just sit there in Jabba's palace for months? I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think this goes to the core of what we talk about. Is that not everything has to be for everyone, and as long as you're not saying it shouldn't exist and other people shouldn't enjoy it, that to me is the problem. If it ain't for you, it ain't for you, and there's nothing wrong with that. You whistle and walk away. Jennifer, how do you feel about this specific element of this era that the game is dabbling in, of filling in lots of details or sort of cramming lots of story around, a tight time window that you've been familiar with for a long time?
I think it's a terrible idea. No, I think what Ken said, the original trilogy is I have such a strong attachment to it. I think people of our generation are going to have that attachment to it. Whereas, and I'm just going to say, maybe a younger person has a little bit more flexibility with it. It's just stories. And I don't know if maybe it's for me, like I'm thinking of like my video games, like Castlevania, Super Pitfall. It was like video games were video games, movies were movies. And nowadays, especially with like Fallen Order and Kenobi, I really didn't like that, because I'm like, unlike a book or the comics, I can't really go play Fallen Order. I mean, I could, but like, it feels like there's a barrier to me experiencing what video game players have experienced, right? I don't have a PS5. I'm not going to be able to really probably experience this game. So if there are some like interesting nuggets that are relevant to the movies that we love, I'm not going to be able to know about it. I can't research. And I want to know it, right? And the last thing I'll say is I think that younger people, like my kids, it's much more like fluid storytelling. Like, and Minecraft is not really an appropriate example because Minecraft was a video game to begin with. But just like they were reading books about Minecraft and reading books about these Lego characters. And it's all just, like I said, storytelling. Whereas for me, it's very much like there's the movie canon, there's the Disney Plus canon. I'm very old school and rigid in my thinking. That's why they take younglings to become Jedi.
Yeah. Yeah. Ken, you look like you have a thought.
Yeah, no, it's a great point because I'm trying to own things, and we'll talk about the game and celebrate the game. I'm excited for a lot of things coming forward to the game, but I don't know. I think maybe it's valuable to work it out, but like a lot of times, like Kenobi or Ahsoka or some of these series, there's been people like, oh, I hope Cal Kestis shows up in live action. I'm like, no, why? Why would you want a TV star in a movie? Like, no. But at the same time, 5 years ago, I was like, God, I hope Andor has Iden Versio in it. And it's just like, I forget that part of me. And I want to get back to that, where it's like because we have some ForceCenter friends in our Discord. Cal Kestis means the world to them. Marin means the world to them. And I love that. And Jed, it's like, look to the youth, right? Look to the youth. And that not everyone who is younger who likes those characters, I want to be clear. But yeah, I have to remind myself that sometimes I'm putting walls up that I was tearing down just 5 years ago around characters I loved.
Yeah, I think for me, maybe there's some of the fierce desire to defend genre and to defend anything that used to be looked down upon. And, I can't even remember how long ago it was now. Clearly when he was still alive, but when Roger Ebert kind of kept making waves because he kept just declaring video games aren't art. They can't be. They never will be. They aren't, period.
Right.
And I feel like we have now moved to the point where they're an incredibly established art form. And for me, it's kind of like, even if I feel left out because I don't have time to play them and I can watch a video montage or the cutscenes, it's not the same as playing them because you want to be the characters. Even if I maybe get left out, I think I'm just kind of happy for the fact that it's not they're not siloed off as less than. That they can be just as important. And I'm kind of I was still thinking about this from like, oh man, it would have been cool if this game existed, whatever number of years ago when I was playing more games and wanted to wander around in a Star Wars open world. And then I was really affected by the trailer that I know there's shots that are gameplay and I know it's all from the engine. But if you could time travel 15 years ago and show that trailer to people, they would think it was a trailer for an animated film, not a trailer for a video game. There isn't a single shot of like what your heads up display looks like, of any sort of like, health bar, of what it looks like when you're actively playing the game. It is so entirely cinematic that it's this point where video games are stories. They are, whether, we want them to be or not, or whatever, it doesn't matter. That's just how they exist in society. And a part of me is just really happy for that, of like, I'd rather have a focus be on storytelling than just leveling up, in a Star Wars game,
Indeed. Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So let's talk a little bit about then what is interesting to us about the trailer. And we're weeks late, and other people do it better, so we're not breaking down, hey, we saw a crate dragon, all that. I'm just curious, big picture, watching the trailer. It's a video game, but it's also a narrative. So as a video game or as a narrative that's going to be around and affect the Star Wars storytelling landscape, Ken, what did you like in the trailer?
I'm ready to explore these worlds, and I'm like you. If there's a mission stuff, even playing like a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, which was life changing for me, I kind of rushed through the story first, and then I want to go explore. Then I'm trying to change that up. But seeing some of the places we are going to be at, Kijimi, Canto Bight, because Cantonica, I think, gave us his home planet. I think she was even born in Canto Bight. Akiva, which was introduced in the Aftermath, the Windig trilogy, the Aftermath series, which Nora Wexley and Stab Wexley were on, I believe, right? It's been a long time. Woo. I'm excited to explore those worlds and even familiar ones because that's always been something I've even championed here on this show. How many times have I said, "Oh my God, I love just in Battlefront 2 walking around Jabba's palace, knowing it's canon that there's a hot spring bathtub up there on the second level." I love that kind of stuff because that harkens back to Battlefront 2 in 2005, where me working through all this prequel stuff was crawling around Mustafar playing as a clone trooper what Padme's ruminations were playing, and I went, oh, maybe there's more for me in the prequels than I admitted because I'm enjoying this. And it wasn't the action, the blasting, it was being in this location in a Star Wars film and getting to explore. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm already on board for 7, 8, 9. I'm a big sequel guy, so I don't need to explore Jimmy to love it more, but it's just going to be so fun to spend time on those worlds. And that is the biggest thing I'm looking forward to this game. Love the characters, love the potential of the story. That's all there. But just exactly what you said. Show this to me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago. My brain would pop out of I get to go be in Star Wars and go around every category or every corner. I love that. I love that idea. That's the biggest thing I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. Jennifer, how about you? What is exciting to you about the trailer, either story or aesthetic or anything?
I love the character of Kay Vess. It's a character very reminiscent of Han Solo. It's the kind of character I want to see in a movie, TV show. I love that she has a pet companion that looks like an oxalato. I'm sure there's a Star Wars name for it. Nix, who is voiced by D. Bradley Baker. Is there anything this man can't do? I was like, what? He's voicing this character too? Oh, God, love him. So I love her attitude. Of course, I got excited when I saw Jabba, although Jabba did look a little drunk or something. Like, he was like,
yes, he did.
Right?
Yes.
Maybe you can pay $20 extra to Ubisoft to make Jabba drunk.
Yeah. So that was fun. But yeah, I love the idea that she gets a crew together, right? And there's a Shadra fan. Fun stuff. I want to see it in a show.
Commando droid in that trench coat.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if they do this here, it will warm people up to the idea of having these types of characters in a show.
Well, I mean, I think that continues to be a dance with this era of storytelling, like we're seeing with the High Republic. Of people fall in love with it in publishing and comic books, and they want to see it on screen. We're going to talk a little bit more about Vernestra Rowe. People are clamoring for Cal Kestis, and
Right.
Marin, and I think there are people. We always get questions about some of the books, like, would you like an animated adaptation of a book? So there's that question of these characters can live on and they can appear in live action media, or even, it would be funny if we moved back in time to the point where there was like a comic book and novel adaptation of these video games. So for people who didn't play video games, but really wanted to experience the story, they could read the story. That would be fascinating if there's just old school, Alan Dean Foster writes the story of Star Wars Outlaws.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah. Not Alan Dean Foster. But anyway, I really agree with you about the things that are exciting to me about it. It feels like Kay Vess looks like a really interesting character because she feels like a self-aware Han Solo.
Yes.
Where, Han takes a while to realize, he knows he wants freedom, right? But it seems like Kay Vess really is like, all I want is to live free, so I'm going to do all this outlaw crap because I have to. And if I score this one big job, I can get out. Is a fun take on the outlaw perspective. It's not as negative as well, this is the way the world is, and there's no way out of it. It's the way it's always going to be. Is great. My biggest thing for video games that I love when they're narrative is when they're well constructed in the story to make me want to do the missions. So even if the gameplay isn't to my taste or gets a little annoying, it doesn't matter because I so desperately want to do it. My biggest video game is always like in the Legend of Zelda series. Whenever a Goron needs anything, like I will drop everything in my life to help a Goron because I love you so much and I want to help you Gorons. There are some moments like that Jedi Fallen Order was really successful of like, no, this shall not stand. I'm rescuing those Wookiees, that kind of thing. In this video game, what was great about this trailer it's so narrative, and it's so you are Kves. Kves is another character, but also you are Kves. So you're deeply invested of can I get out? Having that be the overriding question of the video game takes it away from, just being a fantasy of like, I'm a bounty hunter and I go around and I take people out. Like that'd be a cool video game, but this is such a hopeful video game of can I get out? And that looks really great to me about it. Nyx looks really great because I'm sure Nyx is lovable. I'm sure there'll be times where Nyx is in trouble, and then you'll be like, I'm not going to bed. I gotta save Nyx, right?
Yeah.
And then for me, the mix of the familiar in the new, like riding around Tatooine on a swoop bike, cool. Great Dragon, which is ancient, but also now we know exactly what it looks like from The Mandalorian versus New Worlds. All that stuff is great. Other big picture thing for me, as I think this era of Star Wars storytelling, it does tie, looks like, pretty directly to the comic book War of Bounty Hunters Crimson Reign era, but also ties into Solo. I believe the developers have talked about that, but it ties into Bad Batch, ties into Kenobi, it ties into this era of Imperial domination. And I think that the part of that story that's been really attractive to me that's been developed is this idea that the lie that authoritarian governments are cruel, but at least the trains run on time. It's a lie. They're not well organized either. It's just something, the client in The Mandalorian kind of claims like, well, wasn't everything really well organized? Like, no, they let criminals run loose because chaos and pain is actually valuable to them. So I feel like focusing on the criminal syndicate part of this era also continues to tell us a lot about the Empire. And I enjoy that part of the Star Wars world building.
Yeah. I love the you got to get out type of thing. I think her KFS looking for some sort of freedom, and that's a good way to approach this underworld. I like what you're saying. Now, I'm with you too. Could I take a bounty hunter game where I literally get bounty pucks and go around? Yeah, sure, absolutely. But that seems a little. It's definitely Star Wars, but it seems a little less Star Wars storytelling than what we got here. So I'm on board with that too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this easily could have been a little bit more of a power fantasy game of are you the baddest bounty hunter in the galaxy?
Right.
It could have been in this perspective is much more. I got a crew. We're all trying to get out of this. I think it's a really great example of having your cake and eating it too in a positive way. Of we get all the outlaw fun, but we get a little bit more of a hopeful message that I think Star Wars ultimately goes to.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on the Outlaws trailer, Jennifer?
No. I if we go to Jabba's palace, I don't want to really learn anything more. Excuse me. About like, don't give it to me in a video game, please. Like, I like reading it in books, comics, because I'm never gonna play it. So I'm never say never. But
maybe they'll do live stage play adaptations that tour from town to town. But I don't know. It's a really fascinating thing that I think is going on in Star Wars right now. There's a desire to, for in the bubble fans to know everything, and I think they're trying to tell stories for all markets, and it's a lot to keep up with everything. Next to, I'm not saying impossible, but it's time consuming. Ken, any final thoughts from you?
It's a great trailer, and it looks wonderful. It looks so, I don't know, well constructed. And I'm looking forward, like I said, to exploring every shadow there. And I really, truly am approaching this with some hopeful caution. I think caution is just like I personally have not been engaged with previous Star Wars video games since Battlefront 2. And that includes some of the Lego games, which I was, that was fun. And then it burned away pretty fast. So I'm looking forward to, throwing my controller less than I did with Survivor and Fallen Order. And then and just getting to catch my breath in a game like this. That's the one thing I felt with some of the other games. That's why I go to the quote unquote open world games a lot more when I'm playing these kind of games. Is I just want to go at my own pace and not feel like I need to rush forward, because I do have that tendency in games. So this is going to be fun. I hope it really delivers on that, and I'm excited to see everyone fall in love with these characters and post about it and engage and champion and cosplay. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Hmm. Yeah, I like Jedi Fallen Order. I think significantly more than Ken as as time goes on. I think we're aligned on loving the story, but I love the story so much. It for me it eclipsed like, this isn't my favorite gameplay. I don't like
Mm,
Fallen all the time. I didn't like that you can't backtrack really to go look at a thing again. But I so
right.
loved Jedi Fallen Order, and I realized that the ideas in that story have really sunk in and have impacted the way I look at other Star Wars storytelling. So even if I don't play Outlaws ever, or if I don't play it right away, I'm looking forward to seeing how it sinks in, and if 2 years from now, people in the action figure community are celebrating because there's a deluxe K vest action figure that comes with Nyx, and
Mm,
if a Lando show ever gets made and they run into K vests, and this will be all uh, maybe you
mm.
won't even need to have played the video game to be impacted by the way the storytelling filters into everything else. Can't wait to see the way it all oozes together, because like it or not, it oozes these
It
days.
oozes.
Mm-hmm.
Everything oozes. It should have been called Star Wars : ooze. Uh,
Ooze.
all right.
Secret
That's
news.
fantastic.
Secret of the Ooze. That's the Jabba mission you have to pay $40 for. Secret of Jabba's Ooze. All right. On that lovely note, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back to discuss the Acolyte and May the 4th back in a moment. And we are back. We have talked a little bit about the Outlaws trailer. Now we're going to talk about some actual closer to breaking news. Some new Acolyte quotes from Total Film Magazine. I got these quotes that we're going to talk about from the Star Wars Newsnet coverage of the Total Film Magazine article for full clarity. So we got some more Vernestra Rowe talk about different parts of Star Wars bleeding into one another. A character from books and comic books is making her live action debut in a different era of her life. Here's a quote from Leslie Headland about Vernestra Rowe. I don't want to use the word badass, but Vernestra is such a badass. She's a revered Jedi Master. This series is set about 100 years on from when we've seen Vernestra in other High Republic media, so she's certainly an elder who thinks she's seen it all. Vernestra's lightsaber is purple, and she was able to alter it as a 16-year-old and turn it into a light whip. I believe that's a quote, and people are running with that. That means light whip is confirmed for live action. Maybe there's some other detail I've missed, but for sake of argument, we're going to assume that yes, we're going to see a lightsaber that turns into a light whip in live action. Light whip in live action. So, Ken, we've come, a long way from Darth
Mhm.
Maul's double-bladed lightsaber. How are you
Mm.
feeling these days about weird or different lightsabers?
I'm feeling pretty good. Purple light whip sounds like some sort of ice cream cone you get at California Adventure. Uh, they had that swirl place and they got rid of it. Oh god, it was my favorite. Yeah, I have come a long way, and I was always on board for Maul. I mean, that trailer moment, it's iconic for a reason. I was more on board for Kylo Ren's blade in 2014-15 range than others, and I know you've grown and changed with your view on that over the years too. I do think there sometimes can be too much, and I, you know. I think the light whip, my relationship to it being this EU thing, I kind of was aware on the side, has changed from now. And it's because of the storytelling based around it, where they gave us this wonderful why in the High Republic novel. In which she talks about, this is maybe something she's not supposed to have, something she kind of kept secret, and it was about her identity and who she was, and she's this 16-year-old wonderkin, Jedi Knight, and I thought that made it really interesting to me, other than just different lightsaber, right? Like the blade goes this way, the other one's curved. Like no, like I saw it just won me over with that. Whether or not we're gonna see it, I'd like to see it. At this point, I'd like to see it. And I that quote, if maybe there's other quotes, this one doesn't make me think that we're gonna see it, but at the same time, they've thought a lot about it, right? Like Leslie Headland's excited about it. So yeah, I do hope we see it, and I'm excited about a purple light whip. So yeah, I'm there for it.
Yeah. No, I feel the same way. I was. It's on my comedy album, Rebel Scum, which is about Star Wars, poking fun at Kylo's lightsaber.
Mhm.
But that was a different time for me.
Yeah.
And when I recorded that, the movie hadn't come out, so I hadn't
Mhm.
seen how well Kylo's lightsaber aligned with the character. I do think there's this interesting dance where lightsabers are almost like troopers, where like even if it doesn't entirely make sense, there's a tradition and a desire to have a new one. And it's a place where I think Star Wars, the absurd and the profound, kind of butt up against one another sometimes. But when I think about it, there isn't a lightsaber I don't like as long as it's tied to the character. And Kylo's, I ended up loving Kylo's because the unstable shaking blade, and even though it was a style of lightsaber, then later clarified, but the venting out the sides is like, it's so great because it fit the character. And yeah, having had the opportunity to read the first phase of the High Republic and learn about Vernestra's whip being this like, I have a calling to do this and I don't understand why, is so like a young person trying to find themselves. And it really, the whole light whip story is almost like a kid being like, I have a feeling that I need to get a tattoo, that's who I'm going to become. That's what I need. But I'm afraid to show my parent the tattoo because they'll think it means I'm on some difficult path. So like, it wasn't just, and one of these kids got a light whip. It wasn't just to be cool. It was entirely tied to character. And that is totally what matters to me. Jennifer, where are you at with your relationship with different kinds of lightsabers?
I think it's appropriate. I think that just like our world, people customize things, especially something that's seen as like a sacred weapon, right? So I think that it's telling that these characters or Vernestra Rowe would do that, right? I mean, and that's the thing. I obviously have not read the High Republic. I don't have that reference point, but the artwork that was included in this article from, I believe, a comic book cover, really cool. And I was like, okay, I'm open to it. Although I guess maybe we won't see it. I don't know. But I loved Kylo Ren's. I love it. I think it was so unique when I first saw it. It was shocking. It was like scary looking. And I loved it even more when I saw it in action in the film. So yeah, give us more lightsaber variations. Why not? Customize it.
Yeah, customize them. Yeah, I hope it does show up. So the light whip may or may not be explained in the show, explained in quotation marks there. Ken, how are you feeling about the dance that Star Wars does between staying true to deeper lore that's established in publishing or a video game? This is another question really about our ooze topic. Everything oozes together, and for the people who love High Republic, they're going to be, dancing in the streets to see a light whip. And people who've never read the books will be like, Green Lady's got a light whip, right? How do you feel about that dance that goes on in Star Wars?
It's a delicate dance. It's a tango that needs to be learned. It is. It's always going to be. And while you're asking me that question, I'm hoping we see it. I really do want to see it. And I'm just picturing my fiance Grace on the couch with me, who has no idea who Vernestra Rowe is, who has no idea what the High Republic is, or a light whip, but loves Star Wars. And I bet you, I can almost guarantee, when that light whip shows up, if it does, I bet she's going to be like, "That's effing cool."
Yeah.
And you can't undercut the importance of that, the value of that in Star Wars. Maul's lightsaber, Luke's green lightsaber, which was literally, I don't know, we make it green so it stands up better against the blue sky. And it becomes, oh my God, to your tradition talk, the Kylo blade, I have it over here. And that grew into one of my favorites. So I'm excited for that. And they're, you always, you're going to trust the creators to do that the right way. That it's going to show up, and those that know will be excited and know, and those that don't will understand the importance or get the value of it as they see it. I don't know, Pops, like Jimmy Smits' Bail Organa in Rogue One. It was just, he comes out of the shadows and there wasn't arrows. Ding, 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 ding. It was just, if you knew, you knew. And if not, you knew he was important and you learned who he was then if you needed to. Like, they know how to handle it. They always do it well. And I'm going to trust that here too.
The music in Rogue One told you that he was important. So
he was someone else, yeah.
Yeah. And the way he emerged from the shadows, like, ooh, big deal. The guy from Outlaws here.
Yeah. Which, by the way, was so cool that it's still very cool we had Jimmy Smits come back, Bailey. I still love that.
Yeah, keep coming back, Jimmy Smits. Jennifer, this really does kind of go to everything we've been talking about. How are you feeling about something like a light whip pops up and it's just a cool character thing. How does that make you feel?
I like it. I do. It's because I'm in the nerd bubble, but I also understand I have limitations now. Whereas before, I
Mm-hmm.
would do a lot of research and try and learn everything about it. And now I
Mhm.
just have to accept I cannot keep up with the High Republic. I
Mm-hmm.
can't keep up with all of their stories and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I already am feeling a little bit lost. Not lost, but just distant. And
Mm.
and I
Mhm.
know that there's going to be a lot of references in there that I am going to get, but there's also going to be ones where people are freaking out online saying this is amazing that the Gulda is there, and I'll be like, but that's just where I am in my life, and I have to accept that. It's okay if I don't know everything, if I don't have that emotional attachment. Sometimes something can just look cool, and that can be the end of that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. And that's what I think we have to remember. Everyone's fandom is different, and some people might be coming to the show for the very first time and have maybe not even really seen Star Wars before. We have to welcome them in and not be like, oh, you don't know that this light whip, this came from blah, 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 right? It's okay. It's all right. And I'm saying that to people out there and to myself. It's all right if I don't know.
You should do explainer videos where you just make that voice. Yeah, the light came from
So what you're saying
anti-explainer
is,
videos. Yeah.
what you're saying is, if the Acolyte makes a reference to 9-egg stew and Joseph and I get really excited, you're gonna just have to trust us that the 9-egg stew reference is top notch.
Is that really a thing? 9-egg stew.
Porter Engel's 9-egg stew, man.
The Blade of Bardana.
Yeah.
Wikipedia, what's
maybe
9-egg
not.
stew?
It's not a conversation for today's show. It's interesting, Jen. I feel you on a lot of things. And Joseph, I know you're in some of the spots too, where like the comic books and everything, where there's something where we three and others like us, and I'm not even attaching age to that, but just where we've been in this bubble, the explosion of Disney era Star Wars, whether you loved it or not, we loved it, or we love most of it, or we engage with a lot of it, we're aware of it. And there's a little bit of a transition. For me, it is a little tied to age, but it's a little bit of like, I still love this with all my heart, and I'm struggling to face the truth. I don't read the comics anymore.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with the books. Some of the video games lost me, and that can be it's a moral choice. Which direction do you want to go with that? And it can be a struggle. It can be a struggle. And Jen, I feel some of what you're talking about too, of just like, it's not that you don't want to, you can't. And so that sometimes can turn into bitterness or confusion or anger or just apathy. And that's sometimes what I struggle with, some of this stuff.
For me, I think it's a really interesting exercise to try to, self-analyze what emotion are you having and where is it coming from? Is it totally personal that like, I love this and I hate without any external pressure that I don't know what everybody else is cheering about because I want to, right?
Yeah.
Or is it, a larger cultural sort of FOMO? I've talked about this before where like I grew up where I could not let people know when I was in my 20s that I knew that Greedo was a Rhodian. Like that would end a date. Crappy stereotypes, but some of them are true. I did date some women who are like, I like that you're a performer, but why are your walls covered with Star Wars action figures? So like, and that's just my own personal experience. But to go from a world where I had to be cautious to let people know that I knew too much about Star Wars to then fear being judged for not knowing enough is this, weird cultural transition we've been in. And I think earlier in the genre explosion, I think there was a lot of gatekeeping. And like you didn't know that it was Thanos who popped up at the end of Avengers. You could still hear people in theaters saying that to one another. Ken, you and I studied for the Star Wars trivia, where it became like a we are. So there's I think we're shifting now. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, no, I don't care. I'll read they're going to be 800 articles about that light whip. 5 seconds after. Who cares?
Yep.
But I think that some of us are still traumatized by eras of time where there was external judgment for not knowing versus internal, I love Star Wars and I'm disappointed I don't have time for everything, is different than an externalized fear of being mocked or judged.
Yeah,
Well,
and there's a
go ahead, Ken.
There's a lot of identity attack. I'm going through some of the Game of Thrones sides, right? Like I'm also a Game of Thrones guy. That's how people. I used to watch on Collider talk about Game of Thrones, and I love Game of Thrones. I love House of the Dragon, and season 2's coming up, and people are like, what do you think about Blood and Cheese? I'm like, I don't remember where that is, and I feel as though I'm losing part of my identity, right? It's this weird thing, and I think sometimes in Star Wars, people are like, and I'm like, oh yeah, man, I don't know that. Who am I now? It's just so I'm trying to own that to your thing, and a lot of it's coming up today. That's, Jen, you mentioned that's why it's a deeper conversation for later. But I think it's a balance, and you're right. To analyze it where it's coming from, and to know that you can be this, that we could be the ForceCenter people who are like, what? Wait, what's a light whip? Like, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. And I will say, for me as a woman, the challenge has been to always feel like I have to prove my nerd cred. I have to prove my Star Wars cred, especially when I was making videos regularly. Even now when I make these videos, there's always somebody who's going to come and correct me. God forbid I misspeak on something. God forbid I mispronounce an Academy Award winner's name. Can you please just not, like, I see my male counterparts, and not even so much you guys, but like these guys will say wrong things all the time, and I'm not on there being like, you guys didn't say that, blah, blah, right? You get a pass. But it's so that's why it like literally is, and I'm not joking. I mean, that's why sometimes it takes so long to make these videos, is because I am going with a fine-tooth comb, watching, making sure that I'm not misspeaking. So the fact that I don't know a light whip, I'm like, how much research am I going to have to do? Am I going to, you know what I mean? Before I talk about a light whip, because then people, the character, you know, a light whip, right? That guy's going to come and jump down my throat and be like, where were you? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I was in the movie theater in 1983, because I'm old, watching Return of the Jedi. Where were you? You know? I'm going to get on a rant, because this was bothering me this past week.
It's understandable. And we do not have to deal with it anywhere near as you do, because there's an extra element of, it's not about Star Wars. It's about something else often. But I have an outsized reaction to I get far less of those comments, but I have an outsized reaction to them. So it's a similar thing of like, double check, don't say anything wrong, because, you know, if we post something and we get, 8 wonderful comments, we get one real jerky, you didn't even know blah blah blah.
Oh my god.
I'm really working on that. I need to let it go, because it's just that is not the litmus test, but I think it's a part of all this of like, I want to separate out, what do I care about in Star Wars, and what do I feel like some jerk is going to make some dumb little comment, and it's going to trigger ages old embedded, this isn't about Star Wars. This is about being bullied in 6th grade. It's triggering ancient FOMO and othering fears, and trying to unpack that so we can just enjoy a goddamn light whip. That's what this is about. A light whip.
I'm starting to react. I'm on the YouTube side a little bit more. Joseph handles a lot more. The Patreon side, we all have like little areas that we work on ForceCenter. And there was I was in an alley in Burbank waiting to go to my comedy show last night. And often I don't either, we delete comments we don't like on YouTube. We don't care. We don't need them. We're going to clean up our spot, or other times just say whatever. Every once in a while, it slips in. The Jedi shield goes up, and the dark side comes into my soul. I almost just eviscerated someone because they went after your Marshall Lewis thing, Marshall Lucas thing of Lucas didn't use documentary footage he used footage from Torah, and I was in my car and had articles up that I was going to link into YouTube. To be like, he used newsreel footage, documentary footage. He used and they were chastising you, and it put me through the roof, and I have to be better and just walk away, disengage, like you said, Joseph. It's so and then they phrased it, and they were like, the speaker might have misspoke or maybe not understood, and I was like, I wanted to write the writer, producer, and editor of this damn video, that person. Like, who put all the things. So, anyways, I feel you, Jed. I'm very sorry you've had to face many years of Star Wars fan with this. We got your back. If
thank you.
It just drives me.
You
crazy.
know what gets me too is I'll be quoting George Lucas, but because George Lucas has like waffled and like contradicted himself, they're like, "Ha, you're wrong." I'm like, but I quoted him from 19 whatever. Yeah, so now he's saying something different. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, like
Yeah.
it's just
Anyways.
maddening.
Sorry, I blew past the walls
No,
of,
no, no,
of
I
our
think-
No,
conversation, but
no,
But I
gotta
think,
go read that comment now.
themes emerge, and
Mhm.
this is
Gosh.
what's fun to talk about the news, because of what's under the news, and
Yeah, yeah.
we're in this new era where, like, we can't absorb everything, and we have to find ways to process that as Star Wars fans and not have our joy taken away.
Yeah.
I think that's really important to look at.
Mm.
So back to the light whip.
What's funny is we're talking about a lightsaber, and this has just sped us into back in 1984. Someone told me.
It's like, I mean, the light whip is both cool and also it cracks me up because it is just like the lightsaber melted and now it goes. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, I'm sure it'll look real cool, but
Oh
I
my
love it in the book.
gosh.
I think the thing for me is, in terms of like my own Star Wars love, which I want to hold on to, is, if in one of the prequel films, hey, when he was getting murdered, Ki-Adi-Mundi had a light whip and it wasn't explained, I just would have been like, what? That's cool. Now this is a fun thing to wonder about, to talk about, especially going back to, the original trilogy, where you didn't know what the Clone Wars were. I mean, nobody knew who Yarl Poof was, so we had fun talking about that. There is that Dengar in Rise of Skywalker. It's kind of hinted that Rothgar Dang is Dengar, whatever. Not knowing things is a huge part of what's fun about the bizarre fantasy world of Star Wars. So, like, for me, it's like, great, some people might know what a light whip is. I don't want any explanation. I don't want her to sit down and go, I built this when I was 16 because blah, blah, blah.
Right.
I want Star Wars to be covered, every corner of every frame to be covered in weird, fun crap that fires off your imagination unless you have conversations. The only thing I want crystal clear is emotions of what the characters are feeling and why, so I can be on the journey with them. That's what I care about when it comes to canon. And that's it.
I agree.
Well, that was the first quote.
Oh boy! Well, okay, we have a good segue here. We have a good segue because I do have something, relevant to say.
Okay, good.
You always have something relevant to say.
Always. Okay. So moving on. So there was some discussion about all the different influences that are going to go on in the Acolyte. And here's another quote from Leslie Headland. She's a cinematographer. Chris Teague and I talked a lot about honoring George Lucas's camera moves. I would say the original trilogy became our touch point for how to craft the world. Well, the episode oneness of the show is a bit more thematic. It's a show packed with everything I wanted to explore. I wanted EU stuff in there, references to the original trilogy, The Phantom Menace, the Disney sequels. It's absolutely packed because you never know, you may not get the chance again. So first I want to talk about this crafting the world. Jennifer, what does crafting the world like the original trilogy mean to you? And is that an exciting thing?
I was going to say something snarky about the documentary footage. I like their approach of using similar camera moves and angles to the original trilogy. And the reason why is because we've talked a lot about like the genre, the mystery genre. This is going to be kind of a new type of Star Wars story. But giving it those familiars of the camera angles and things like that is going to remind us this is very much Star Wars. Obviously, like the characters, the costumes will remind us it's Star Wars. But it's just kind of like something subconscious that's going to be baked into the show, which I really, really like. I also wonder if they took inspiration from how the galaxy was crafted, like the practical aspect of it. Right? I know that they didn't use a volume. So, what does that mean for visual effects, things like that? How far did they take this, I guess, is what's interesting to me beyond just the camera angles.
Yeah. Ken, what does crafting the world like the original trilogy mean to you?
It means living in that world, man, and exploring what George and Gilbert Taylor and everyone from the original trilogy and the prequel era put into it, and because it's a world we love, and it would not make sense to ignore that, but you also want to be new, and I think comments like these can get misconstrued, that they're like, this is the Star Wars is just about Star Wars argument. This is Star Wars is just nothing but member berries. You ask Sarah, your wife almost witnessed me get into an argument at my little birthday gathering because someone started to go down this path, and I was like, you're playing in this world that inspired you. Leslie Headland just wasn't hired for a job. She was hired for Star Wars. And it doesn't mean every creator has to be a fan, as we always go to. I'm not making fun, but Tony Gilroy's not the biggest fan of Star Wars, and he did a bang up job, right? That's not a prerequisite, but it's just she's dripping in this stuff. EU and Phantom Menace. She was in the theater. She was there. Hell, I hope we run into her at Phantom Menace this weekend, because she'll probably be there. And it isn't just simply. It's not a fan film. You're building that world, and you want to be in it. You want it to feel like it, but be its own thing. I just mentioned House of the Dragon is not Benioff and Weiss. It is its own thing, but it is in that world, and it feels right while it's doing something different. And telling a different story, and I'm excited for this kind of conversation. This should be and just the original trilogy is our home in a lot of ways for the visuals, right? We can't escape that. We appreciate all the other ones. I think I appreciate a lot more of the prequels feel and look and vibe than I have at any other point in my Star Wars fandom. But man, it's dirty, it's grimy, and the moves. Oh, that's exciting for me to actually. Here's how the camera moved. Here's how Gil Taylor moved his camera.
Yeah, I think this is particularly exciting to me. Partially, I am not a super expert, but this is a lot of stuff I am trying to learn much more about. The last 2 short films I did, I shot on my phone and lit myself, and have been thinking a lot about this kind of stuff. I'm trying to work on this feature film, and one of the things I have to do when we're done recording is make sure I write down some of the ideas about specific scenes, about camera movement and angles and lighting and how it helps tell the story. So this is where my mind has been a lot. Again, not saying I'm a super expert, but the fact that this is a conversation with the cinematographer and talking about camera moves and yes, we're talking about George Lucas as the overall auteur, but yes, all of the cinematographers and all of the different directors involved, but all of it, Lucas had a hand in. What's really interesting to me is to shoot it like the original trilogy is to take a few steps back from where cinematography is today. There are definitely some artsy shots, and there's definitely some cool camera movement in the original trilogy, but not that much by modern standards. It is, the original idea that Lucas had was to shoot Star Wars, the first film, like a documentary.
Right.
And I think what I think of when I think about what does that mean in a modern setting? Like the prequels have more arty shots. The prequels have more camera movement. You got to tie J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson down to make them stop moving the camera, right? What I think is cool about the original trilogy is there is a little bit of a documentary feel. There's a lot of just mise en scène. It's almost more like we've designed this beautiful set, and now the camera's pulled back, and here's the entire vibe of Dagobah communicated to you in relatively still establishing shots. Here's the layout of Yoda's hut, and now almost like we're watching a play in a proscenium. Now we're watching the characters move through this environment that's been established by much more still shots. And that to me is really fascinating to think about the world building, like really literally the world building of we've built these environments in just an establishing shot of the set and the space tells you who these characters are, and the movement of the camera is minimal, and it's more the characters that are moving through the space. If that's what they mean, that's pretty fascinating.
You talk a lot about, I've seen it criticized at times, but I'm not a cinephile to care. Richard Marquand and Alan Hume in Return of the Jedi. A lot of establishing shots, a lot of here, and I've seen those think pieces. But I love what you're talking about. Yeah, it's like here's the characters. Here's this. It is almost like this wonderful, beautiful living matte painting that we're playing around in. I love a lot of that stuff for Return of the Jedi. It's the first one. First one I saw in the theater, right? That's what pulled me in. That's what pulled me in. It's guttural with me.
People love Return of the Jedi, and I think the actual filmmaking for me in Empire Strikes Back, between how deep Irvin Kershner went with the actors and Peter Shushitsky, might be personally responsible for turning most films now into orange and teal from that great, amazing lighting design in the carbon freezing chamber. There's so much about Empire Strikes Back that's really elegant. And then Return of the Jedi is very straightforward in the way it's shot. A lot of it. but it works clearly because people have a deep emotional reaction to it, and I think it's because it is so character based. It is, we are there with the characters. So I'm also curious if this is specifically about camera movements and cinematography, but I also wonder if that means a structural influence from the original trilogy, where those films obviously have deep meaning and deep characters. But Lucasfilm is all Lucas. I don't know why I keep calling him Lucasfilm today. But Lucas is also like, it's been this many seconds, another conflict, another problem, another action set piece. All that great character stuff and all those great ideas are told through really propulsive movement and action set pieces. Ken, are you expecting or wanting the Acolyte to really have an emphasis on serial adventure?
Yeah, in its own mystery kind of way, right? As clues and intrigue unfurl in front of us. That's what it is. I'm not expecting this to be, what I love about Rise of Skywalker, which is an adventure in the desert, adventure in stuff. But I think the characters going through those punches, the story, taking us around the twists and turns. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that could be potentially what's there and exciting.
Yeah. How do you feel, Jennifer, about Acolyte having, it may or may not, having a little bit more adventure serial? It's not too long between action set pieces.
I would imagine that would be the case, especially how she talked about in this interview where she was like, it feels more like Russian Doll, in the sense that like you're getting little clues and you think you figured it out, and then it upends itself and you know nothing. So to me, that's like, oh, we're going to be building towards something, a lot of action, and then it's going to be we have to wait till next week to figure out what actually happened. So that's exciting. I'm really, really looking forward to this show. June, right? June?
Yeah.
June.
Wow,
Yeah.
soon.
Coming very soon.
Right
Want to pull out this one other thing from this quote where she talks about, it's absolutely packed because you never know. You may not get the chance again. And, we're reading these words. I didn't see this interview that could easily be just an off the cuff jokey thing that she said. But I believe Rian Johnson has said similar things about Last Jedi. Like, I don't know if I'd do another one. I got to say everything I want to say about Star Wars. Ken, how do you feel about creators packing everything they love about Star Wars into one project because they don't know if they're going to do another Star Wars project?
I would do it. I'd be right there with you, with them. This is. I think we're blessed. We're playing free baseball anyways. Once the Disney sale happened, go that day. That looking at the screen in my old security office, my mouth dropped. Not because I just never thought this day would come. Right, that we get to do this again in any way, shape, or form. Whether you like what happened after that or not, different conversation. I do. So I really like this idea that it's not a pressure. It's this great opportunity to put everything you love in there and put all the influences in there and kind of share your story with the world about this thing you fell in love with. I'm excited for that. I think that's the right way. That's the right way to do it.
Jennifer, how do you feel about the idea of packing it all in because you don't know if you'll be back?
I think it's very smart. I like her enthusiasm. And I think there's also something interesting in that she is getting ahead of whatever people might say, right? She has made it very clear. She is a hardcore Star Wars fan. She's talked about all the different areas of Star Wars that she likes, which is vast, right? It's pretty amazing, actually. And so I think she's getting ahead of it. Like, if anybody's going to criticize and be like, she doesn't know anything about Star Wars, like, oh yeah? Here's all the Easter eggs and references. So yeah, very, very smart. I would hope that she would swing for the fences.
Yeah. I love the continuing something that I think a lot of Star Wars storytelling is doing in Outlaws is also a great example of this, of it makes it feel cohesive to pull it all together, to have something, in Outlaws, it's set between Empire and Jedi, but there's a commando droid in a trench coat, from the prequel era, and we're visiting planets that we first were introduced to in the sequel era and all that. So I just always like that, just because it makes it all feel cohesive, even if I don't know like the EU stuff. The Living Force is lousy with beings that are EU creatures. So I like knowing the creatures. So when it's like, it's a Woostroid, I'm like, what the hell's that? Like, it appeared in one comic once 18 years ago, whatever. And all that stuff is like, it's rich and fun and connects everything to me. So I'm excited for that. And in terms of a creator, I kind of feel like, throw it all in there. And then if there's another project, that's kind of a fun place to start at, of like, what's beyond the next horizon of like I touched on all the things that are most important to me in Star Wars, but what's next now is kind of an interesting place to start from.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm sure we'll get more drips of interviews from the Acolyte, but for now, we're going to look ahead to May 4th, Star Wars Day coming up very soon. Saturday, May 4th, Star Wars Day, Tales of the Empire is releasing. The Phantom Menace is back in theaters. We will still be reeling, probably, from the Bad Batch finale, so plenty going on. Jennifer, how will you be observing Star Wars Day?
Well, we got to experience the pod racing scene on Star Tours this past weekend, and I was hoping that would kind of get my kids excited to watch The Phantom Menace. They're still holding fast onto watching Return of the Jedi in the theater, which we found. It was Ewoks or Jar Jar, so they want Ewoks, and we're just going to go for it. It has nothing to do with an anniversary. I feel like a terrible Star Wars parent, but I know that they wouldn't make it through the Trade Federation stuff. So we'll go see Return of the Jedi on May the 4th.
Yeah, I don't think that's letting anyone down to see a live action Star Wars movie on Star Wars Day.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah. Ken, how are you observing?
Tales of the Empire. I'm excited for that. I can't wait. I am probably be basking in the the glow or the afterglow of Phantom Menace. Seeing that in theaters, I can't wait for that. I'm really excited for that. Like I'm pulling out my my jacket pins, my old pins from our buddies at Black Series Rebels. I'm picking out all my Phantom Menace ones and my Jar Jar ones, and I'm wearing my pod racing shirt. Like I'm all in, and I have in the past said, I was cynical a little bit about Star Wars Day when it first showed up as this unofficial holiday. It's like every day is Star Wars Day in my life, but what a joy we have, and we have to get to experience this and have it be just out there in the world. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. Tales of the Empire. Getting excited for that movie, and I don't know. I'm gonna keep the vibes going because I this past year. So, with the strikes and everything, I just, like I said earlier, my relationship with Star Wars has evolved, but it's still so wonderful and enriching, and I love it. But I got to get over some of the little corners that I'm not familiar with or I don't want to be as familiar with. And I'm going to use this Star Wars Day to truly celebrate Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm going to go to Phantom Menace screening. I'm so excited for it. I like I said in other places, like I adjusted a trip to make sure that I could see Phantom Menace with a large crowd because I just love the community. I can't wait to see it with the community and see, like, are people going to cheer for C.O. Bibble's line about invasion? I don't know. I hope so. I might. Maybe I'll try to get it going for C.O. Bibble. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for that. And then I'm going to Seattle on actual May 4th to see a screening of the short horror film I worked on, Nightmare Adorable. And to me, that kind of feels like some amount of Star Wars celebration because I probably wouldn't have been trying to make a movie like that without my love of Star Wars, both the actual story of Star Wars and the inspiration of Lucas and company just making it happen. And all that is just continues to be great influence, the history of Star Wars. So then I'll probably watch Tales of Empire alone in a hotel room at 2 a.m., avoiding social media, and buy an action figure. And hopefully the convention will have something I'm hunting for in the dealer's room. That'll be it for me. Nice. Arguably, we have two other anniversaries in May. Not arguably, we do have them. There's been the cohesion of May 4th being the official Star Wars Day where everything happens. But we have the actual release date of The Phantom Menace on May 19th and the evergreen May 25th, the release date of Star Wars Return of the Jedi and Solo. Are these now minor holidays compared to May the 4th, Ken, or do you observe these days as well?
I'll be honest. It makes a ton of sense to have all these movies in the theater for May 4th. I get it. No argument. But I'm still kind of like, but folks, May 25th. That's the day. It should be that. I like those days. I think I can be sometimes a victim of nostalgia and a sucker for it, and a sucker for on this date or right here. That's why I like history. In Boston, I was like, Mark, I want to go to Paul Revere's house. I want to go to Paul Revere. I want to stand right there. I want to stand because part of the wood has been there since 1600s. I like right here. Not the city, here. And I think so. I have a little bit of specifics of on this day in 1999, 10 a.m., Winnetka Pacific Theater's 20 in Winnetka. That's where I was. And so I'm going to celebrate it my own way that day.
Yeah, that
For
makes a
all
lot
of
of sense to
and
me.
Jedi and Solo too, but
Yeah. I can't go to all of the screenings, the festivals that Nightmare Adorable is lucky to get into, but I said no to one because it just didn't work out time wise. And then I looked at where it was. It was like, oh, it's in Pennsylvania. I'd love to go. I really just can't that weekend. And I looked at more closely, like it's in Gettysburg, like actual Gettysburg. Like,
yeah.
well, here's where Civil War stuff happened, and then over here, not far away, is the AMC, where this be like, I want to go to that. You're like,
Oh
it has
my
nothing to do with the
gosh.
film, right? But it's just that sense of history, that sense of like
Yeah.
place, and time moves on. Like, so I'm with you on that. Like, the date in the place means something to
Yeah.
me, you know?
And I both hate and love that we lose history like that, or that it just changes. Like Abraham Lincoln was assassinated here, and you can get chicken wings at the Hard Rock Cafe. It's all the same. It's all good.
That's right. That's right. Jennifer, how do you feel about those actual release date anniversaries?
It's very important because it is historical. I am starting to feel a little bit like May the 4th has become very commercialized. You know, Crocs is sending me emails. Check out these Star Wars Day Crocs. It just feels like all these companies are now like shelling their products for Star Wars Day, which is fun, but it also is like, you guys, the actual release date is, and so I'll celebrate it in my own way to make it feel special because it is important. It is a special day.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like May the 4th is solidified in as we always joke, George Lucas didn't start a nonprofit in 1977. It's commercialism is a part of it. It's the action figures that I love. The commercialism created one of my deepest loves of this world. But that is different than like you just like, do you want a toothpick that has a microscopic picture of C-3PO's head? Like it is. So that's why I got to really pick and choose what I do on May the 4th, and then just say for myself, like, I don't need to steer the ship. I don't need to change culture's mind. May the 4th is the date. Great. So what am I going to do for myself to go like, but this is the day it happened. I don't need to change culture. I need to choose for myself. What am I going to do on that day? So I'm probably going to look through some Fandom Menace trading cards, or maybe I'll open my Seal Bibble action figure. I'll do something on that date for myself.
I love that, and well said. You can't change the culture. Just keep it all inside for yourself and change for yourself. You're also, it's so funny. Like I rolled 10 years ago at BB-8 oranges, but if someone wants to send me a package of BB-8 branded oranges, I don't know how they would have lasted 10 years, but I was like, but also I mentioned earlier, it's like, and I think we've touched on this before. Like even here at ForceCenter, I got to say, I don't know if we historically have been a big May the 4th podcast. You know what I mean? A lot of that comes from personal thing where it's like, to me, May the 4th is that day where that guy who I worked with for 2 years sends me the text of, hey, do you have this? It's the Death Star barbecue pit. Or hey, thinking of you, and it's Darth Vader dancing at a theme park or something. Like, just stop. So I have to get over that too. That's again, this episode is a lot about trying to own where my grumpiness comes from.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think may the grumpy be with everyone. I think for me, it is about, there's no point in just denying grumpiness. The point is navigating it. And that's the way I feel about, like, I was grumpy about May the 4th for a long time, and I don't want to be grumpy anymore. So I'll celebrate those other anniversaries my own little way, quietly in my home.
Is this what Padme said? To be grumpy is to be human, Anakin. I think that's what she said.
Yeah. He was pretty grumpy on that Tuscan village. Pretty grumpy. Pretty grumpy. All right, that is our big look at our grumpiness, our loves, the way narrative oozes together, and there's nothing we can do about it. So, Ken, you want to take us home?
I do. We are ForceCenter. You can follow us on social media at ForceCenter Pod. That includes Twitter if you're still there, Hive if you are there, if you ever got there, Threads, and Instagram. Our Facebook page is ForceCenter Podcast. We are a podcast first, always in our hearts, and available on a lot of podcast spots like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and more. Just search or find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/ForceCenter, patreon.com/ForceCenter. Like we said earlier, is where you can support us directly. You can follow me at Ken Napzok or KenNapzok.com. If you looked at my life, you'd think I'm running a nonprofit, but I do want to take advantage. I am wearing my shirt. I wrote the book years ago, Why We Love Stars. I have to shut down my web store because they raised the price on operating it by $600, $700. So I have to shut it down. And I sell personalized copies of Why We Love Star Wars on there. They're in my garage. I got boxes. And this is, I'm not saying it's the last chance, so I'm going to research ways to get back out selling things. But for a while, this is going to be the last chance to get a personalized copy of Why We Love Star Wars. Just go to kennapzok.com, the shop tab, and grab them. I have to shut this down Sunday, May 5th. or... Boom! They charge you. So sorry, reality, reach and joy. But if you want to grab a copy, now is the time. That is on my website there, kennapzok.com. Jen, where can they find you?
You can find me and all of my Star Wars mistakes at Jennifer Landa on all the social media sites, or TikTok at Jennifer Landa 1138.
There you go. Joseph, you are doing a lot of wonderful traveling for this short film I was blessed to be part of, but that's not all that you've got going on. Where can they find and follow all your adventures?
Yeah, you can follow me on most social media at Joseph Scrimshaw is my handle. I'm on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, all sorts of places like that. Probably ones I'm forgetting. I don't know. But come find me on social media. You can also check out my website, josephscrimshaw.com, for a list where The Nightmare Adorable will be playing. Got more film stuff coming up soon, hopefully. But I will be in Seattle the weekend of May 4th at a horror convention called Crypticon Seattle. There's a screening of Nightmare Adorable in the Shorts block at 9 p.m. So if you're in Seattle, if you're going to this convention, please do come to the screening and please do say hello. It's always great to say hello to ForceCenter listeners and viewers. That is it. The news has broken.